This is an Appalachian story, but it involves pretty much every terrifying thing that you could think of that could happen in Appalachia, and this one terrified me. So this guy grew up in Henderson Ridge, and he grew up knowing these rules. Don't whistle after dark, don't answer the woods if the woods answer you, and if you see something in the woods that looks almost right, go inside. Now, he didn't take these rules seriously until the fall his cousin Jess moved in. One day, him and Jess are patching a fence line behind the house when they both hear their names being called, like by the tree line. First Brian's name, clear as a hello, and then Jess's. Here was the strange thing. It sounded just like his mother, as if she was tired. The only problem was his mother was in town closing up a pharmacy. So he looks down at his phone, and then he looks at the driveway, and his mom's car is gone. So they're just sitting there for a second waiting for their names to be called. They're just waiting to see if this thing says anything else. So at this point, they tell themselves that it's just the neighbors fooling around. But the next night, something stranger would happen. So the next night, they're inside when they start hearing something pacing the gravel beside the porch. Slow, deliberate rhythm, like a boot heel, then a scuff, then a quiet. Scary thing is his dog wasn't barking. He went and hid underneath a chair, and he was shaking so bad that his heels started to click. Brian decides that he's going to open the door because this dude is brave. So he walks over to the door and he opens it, but all he can see is fog. A week later, his cousin begs him to ride into town for a late shift. He says yes, and they take what's called the Ridge Road. No shoulder, tight turns, and deer everywhere. Just past this old sawmill, his headlights catch this shape standing in the ditch. Then the figure starts rising up onto the asphalt, and he said that this thing looked like a deer if somebody were to describe a deer who had never seen a deer before, if that makes sense. The legs were too long and they were bending the wrong way, and its head was cocked to the side. It just made him incredibly uncomfortable. It stared straight through the glass right at him, the way that a person does, and he swears this thing did not blink. Jess just whispers to him, "Don't say anything." Brian just eases around it, and then he looks in the rearview mirror, and this thing is taking 3 steps towards him, then another, then it just drops out of the light as if the road had swallowed it. He said for the rest of the ride they were so freaked out they didn't even talk to each other until they got to Main Street. So after midnight he drives home, and he drives down the same road, and his radio starts to fizz out, and it fizzes out normally where it does when he passes this rock cut. Right as the static rose, his mom's voice rose over it. She sounded calm and ordinary, and she said, "Pull over for a second." He said that he did, and his hand had already tapped the blinker when all of a sudden those rules rose up in his head. "Do not let it get you out of the car," he kept thinking, and then the voice just stopped. It didn't repeat. 2 nights later, the mimicry got mean. He woke up at 3 a.m. to his dog's low growling under the bed. His house had this weird pressurized quiet that they get before a storm, except for the forecast was clear. Then a knock at the door, not frantic. 3 measured taps. He goes to check the clock to see what time it is, and it's 3:12 a.m. Then he hears another knock at the same pace. Then his mother's hushed voice comes through the wood and says, "Honey, open up. I forgot my keys." He was halfway down the hall before the details snapped in place. His mother never called him honey. She calls him kid like she did when he was 6 years old, and if she left her keys in town, she would have called him. So he just immediately stops moving, but then the voice tries again. This time it sounds like a singer flipping flat, like, "Honey, let me in, it's cold." This time his dog just starts going crazy. He's barking at the door, he's growling, he's snarling. So Brian goes to the kitchen window and he just lifts the corner of the shades. There's no one there, no shadow, nothing. But then he hears it again, 3 knocks. He said that he actually answered, and he said, who is it? But silence. Then a new voice, but a child this time, or like an adult aiming to be a child. It said, "It's Jess. I don't feel right." That's when he made a rule of his own. No one gets in the house after dark unless I see their face in daylight. So he says, "Go to the front door. I'll meet you there." Nothing moved on the porch, but the dog's hackles stayed up, and then he started counting to 60. No steps, no boards, no weight shifting, but finally from the wrong side of the kitchen, outside of the far window over the sink, his mother's voice again. He hears her say, "Don't make this hard." He didn't sleep a wink that night, and then later on that day, when the sun finally rose up, he walks outside and he checks for handprints, footprints, nothing. It doesn't even look like a raccoon was out there. 2 days later, Jess comes home from the diner, and she's completely shaken. I'm assuming this is where she works. She said near the rock cut where the radio normally dies, she had seen a shape in the road. She said it was in the middle of the road this time, though, and it was standing in her headlights, and it was super tall, taller than a man, but wrong like a deer. She says that its legs were bent backwards, and as soon as she eased eased closer to it, it cocked its head really fast towards her and just watched her drive by. She said she started to feel this pressure behind her eyes like a migraine was starting, and then her hands went numb on the steering wheel. She went 30 yards past it, looks back in the mirror, and it is gone. So he said that after this, they did what normal mountain people do, and they asked around without saying too much, and people had stuff to say. One man said that he had chased a lame buck from his garden a week before, but as soon as it got to the tree line, it started walking on 2 legs. Another woman heard her husband calling from her back steps while he was 2 counties away hauling cattle. And this is the creepiest one. A little boy from his church said that he heard his grandmother singing outside of a trailer. Only problem, his grandmother had passed away a week before. The next night around 2:40 p.m., the wind kind of kicked up a lot. It wasn't storming, but it was very windy, and his lamp outside went out. It went black. He was on the couch with his dog under his knees and in his lap, when suddenly he heard footsteps coming up on the gravel. First heavy, then light, almost if they were testing the weight, like a human. Then it stopped 6 inches from the back door, and he said that he literally stopped breathing. The knob turned a fraction and then stopped against the lock deadbolt. He said a full minute passes, and then the steps went down again. First slow, then quicker, then like a scuff, like something pawed the gravel and then sprinted away on 4 legs. He said the next day when it turned daylight, he went outside to check to see if there was any tracks anywhere. And again, there were no tracks. One thing that there was, though, it was a scratch on his deadbolt. A thin crescent of metal shaved from the faceplate, like a thumbnail had pressed and dragged down. He said after all of this happened that his cousin moved away. He kept the porch lights on all the time. He lived a little differently. He says if you ask him if he believes in SWs, he'll tell you that he respects the people that those stories belong to and the land they come from. He doesn't use the word where it doesn't belong. He said maybe it was a mimic, maybe it was a haint, maybe it was a not deer. He said what he does know is it was mimicking the voices of the people he loved. He said whatever name you choose, remember the rules. Don't answer a voice where it shouldn't be. Don't let anything talk you out of your car on a lonely road. And if it looks almost right, go inside, lock the door, and wait for daylight. So what did you guys think about that story? That story is so creepy. First of all, what is it called when you see like people with their legs backwards? The fact that this deer's legs was bent backwards really freaked me out. Like that is scary. I don't know what that is. The mimicking, it sounds like a mimic, but then like I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how to answer any of these questions. This was so much. Has anyone ever had this much happen to them? Like if you live in the Appalachian Mountains and you've had this much happen to you, please email me because I would love to hear your story because this is wild. I actually got this story off of R, put 2 and 2 together, starts with an R. But I thought it was super interesting and he swears this story is true. But I'm running out of time, so drop any thoughts, opinions, or anything else you can think of in the comments of what it may be, etc. But as always, please be respectful. And now on so much to me. I appreciate you. Love you. And I don't have time for the outro, but I love you guys so much. Have a spooky night. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
So if you needed further proof that Appalachians are innately morbid and goth, here's a little anecdote. When my grandma was finally dying after like 15 different scares, my mom called up her younger sister who had left the night before, and she just very matter-of-factly said, "Well, the old girl's gone." My aunt jokingly asked, "Well, who got to give the final lethal dose of morphine?" My mom tried to convey a sense of urgency when she said, "Well, you better get over here if you want to hug this body, 'cause she's getting stiff on us." As if grandma is some Slim Jim left out in the sun too long. Love my family.
Inside. You all right?
I was outside trying to hang up some decorations, and I heard this noise in the woods. Took my ass right on in the house. I will not be that bitch in a horror movie. It will not be me. I kept my calm, because I was like, I don't know what kind of thing you is. Maybe you smell fear, but it won't be no fear from here. So I put my shit down, picked my phone up, turned the light out, got in the house. Won't be me. You will not make a movie out of me.
Alright, Shadow Seekers. This one happened to me. So a couple of years ago, I went to a writer's retreat in the Smoky Mountains with 2 of my closest friends. It was supposed to be cozy, creative, a weekend to just write and relax. But from the second we got there, it felt off. We had rented this little cottage through a company I'd used a ton of times before, so I didn't expect anything weird or bad. But this place, it looked like no one had stayed there in years. There was dust on everything, cobwebs in the corners, and that heavy, stale smell like the air itself had been trapped for too long. It was small. One bedroom, a little dining room area that connected to the living room, and that living room was basically just big enough for my air mattress to fit between the two couches. Upstairs it had a loft, and I stayed in the living room below while my friend stayed in the loft. Now, the whole living room wall, and I mean the entire wall, was glass, floor to ceiling windows, including the door. It looked out over this big porch/deck that wrapped around the house. And beyond that was nothing but woods. We were on top of a mountain, and so we could look out over that and see nothing but trees. It was pitch black at night, dark as dark. Even with the lights on, it was unnerving. Every time I caught my reflection in the glass, my brain kept expecting to see someone else behind me. And right away, we noticed weird things. The water heater kept going out, and the rental company had to come out every single day we were there to turn it back on. The side doors locked, looked like someone had drilled it out, and the rental company had to come and replace it while we were there. The door to the garage, which sat below us, was locked tight, dead bolted from the other side. And we just kind of laughed it off. We were at a writer's retreat, right? It's creepy and it adds to the atmosphere, no big deal. The first few nights were fine. We wrote, we drank wine, we made fun of the fact that the cottage looked like a serial killer hideout. Everything was chill. Then one night, it had to be around midnight or so, my friends had just gone upstairs to bed and I was laying on my air mattress, scrolling through my phone, when I heard this sound. It was like a shuffling, something heavy moving on the porch outside the glass wall. At first I thought maybe it was raccoons or something. Maybe there was, I don't know, something banging against a pole that was holding up the porch down below us. But it was heavier and slower, so I glanced over. And I swear I see movement. Something dark and too big to be a person, but too low to be upright. I get up and creep closer to the window, trying to see better. And that's when I realize whatever it is, it's actually inside the porch. There's only one door out there, and it's this hidden panel that blends right into the woods, so you never know what's there. And it's always shut. So how the heck did this something get in? I have no idea. I press my face closer to the glass, and that's when I see it. This massive shape, darker than the night behind it, with broad shoulders and thick fur. I freeze, thinking, okay, it's a bear. It's got to be a bear. So if I don't move, it won't see me. It'll go away. It'll come back the way it came. But then it stands up, straight up. And the shape, it's not right. Not for a bear. The limbs are too long, the shoulders too narrow. And it decides to take one step closer, and it walks very human-like while the porch creaked under it. That's when it turned its head toward me, and even in the dark, I can tell it knows I'm there. Our eyes meet through the glass and it smiles. It's not an animal snarl, and it's not a lip curl. This was a smile, human and wide. I gasped, and it snapped its head toward me like it recognized the sound. We locked eyes for maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like forever. Then, just as suddenly, it dropped to all fours, moved out of sight. Needless to say, I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I told my friends there'd been a bear on the porch. I didn't tell them about the smile. I didn't tell them about the eye contact. We just made sure the porch door was closed and locked, and that was that. Until the next night. Everyone's asleep again. I'm on my air mattress, and I hear the porch door creak open. I didn't move. I couldn't. I was frozen in fear. So then there's a tap, tap, tap on the glass, slow and deliberate. I buried my face in my blanket like a kid, but it just kept tapping over and over until finally I just couldn't take anymore, and I looked. And there it was, standing outside, staring right at me. Same smile, same eyes, and they felt way too intelligent to belong to an animal. It didn't move, didn't attack, it just watched me. Hours passed like that, me pretending not to exist, it pretending to be something that wasn't out of a storybook. And just before dawn, it opened its mouth, and this horrible sound came out. It was deep and wrong and wet, but under it, I swear I heard the word help. The next morning, the porch door was locked again, completely shut. But there were paw prints, massive ones, pressed into the dirt outside the door. I told my friends, and they just gave me that look, that one that said, like, sure you did, sure you saw that. But that night, which happened to be our last night there, it came back. I heard the door open, heard the creak of the porch boards, then that tap, tap, tap on the glass again. I refused to look until it made this noise, kind of like a growl, but it sounded like it said the word come. I froze because it didn't sound like a voice outside the glass. It sounded like it was inside the house. Then, as I'm looking with this slow, jerky motion, it raises one long, dark paw and made a come here gesture. And I felt this darn near irresistible pressure to go outside. I fought it, and I don't know how long I sat there fighting that pull, but as the first light hit the trees, the creature slammed its face into the glass so hard it rattled the entire house. My friends came running downstairs just in time to see this giant bear or whatever take off through the porch door. They stared at me like I'd summoned it, and we didn't even pack properly. We just made sure that we had everything, threw it into our bags, and left. The retreat was supposed to be 5 days long, and we made it the entire 5 days, but we were going to make that last day last until basically we had to leave until checkout time. We didn't. We left right then and there as the sun was still kind of creeping up over the trees, and I haven't gone back to the Smokies since. So, Shadow Seekers, what do you think that was? Was it a bear that learned how to smile, or something older? Something that wears the shape of what we're most likely to trust? Tell me in the comments below.
So what was this? Y'all ask me all the time, since I live in the middle of nowhere up in the mountains in Appalachia, deep in the forest, no neighbors. Do I ever see anything creepy? And I've always said, like, no. Like, I see bears and stuff. But tonight, oh, wow. So, it's dark. I go outside in the dark all the time. I know we're advised against it, but I do it all the time. So, I'm walking to the mailbox, and it's a little bit of a jaunt. And I look over, and I see what looks like a goat, a bipedal, like standing on his hind legs, a white, relatively large goat, just standing there, just for a split second. And I look, and I'm like, and I look down, and I look back, and it was gone. But it felt clear. It felt like I saw it. And I just proceeded to go get the mail. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go get the mail. The likelihood of me being attacked by a bipedal goat in the evening in the woods is unlikely. So I just went and got the mail, and it creeped me out. And so I told my husband, and I was like, hey, so this just happened. And he goes, well, maybe it was a juvenile Wendigo. And you can look up a Wendigo. Those things are creepy. And I do believe in this stuff. But I just always, whatever, like, I was just like, hey, creepy goat thing. So that's finally, I have a story for y'all. I'll just keep you updated if I have another sighting. Thanks.
What's a holler? Y'all know I live in the Appalachian Mountains, and we got like a funny way of saying things sometimes. And y'all are always asking me what a holler is, because I'm always talking about living down in the holler, or being raised in the holler, or my granny's holler, or my family's holler, or whatever. Alright, so picture this. You got two mountains, and in between those mountains, there's like a valley. That's what most people would call it, I guess, a valley. And so in that valley, or the holler, when everybody was building their homesteads back in the day, everybody would pile their families into the holler. They'd have like multiple houses going up the holler of all their relatives. Like specifically in my holler, it's me, my mom, my dad, my mom's sister, and her daughter. We all have separate houses, but they're all on like the same driveway in between two mountains. My great granny and papaw used to live across the creek from us, but they're no longer with us. My great papaw's parents and grandparents lived in a cabin behind where my aunt's house sits now. In case you still can't picture it, this is what it looks like. So like you'll see there's like the mountains, and then most of the times the driveway will go down into the like holler. A holler is really just like a Appalachian or a fancy way of saying a valley.
There's one superstition in the Appalachian region that still to this day funeral directors follow almost religiously. And whilst it's a superstition that is not unique to Appalachia, many people in the region still believe it must be followed, else put their family at risk. And that superstition is that a body, a corpse, must be removed from a home feet first. Now, many people might say that because of the way weight is distributed in the human body, it's simply more manageable to push it or carry it feet first. But in the Appalachian region, there's 3 slightly less practical reasons for the practice. First and foremost, the feet lead the body in life, so too should they lead the soul in death. The second reason is similar to the reason people cover up their mirrors in the home when someone passes away. There's a concern that if the body is removed from the home head first, the body might look back through the doorway and simply not want to leave, trapping the spirit inside the home. The third and more dangerous reason is that the soul of the body, if led from the home head first, might look back through the door and beckon the soul of its loved ones to follow it in death, causing them to die shortly thereafter. So remember, friends, feet first always, and memento mori.
When I hear the word siren, I think about the beach. But what if I told you there's a siren in the French Broad River? Back in 1896, old Charles Montgomery Skinner wrote about it in Myths and Legends of Our Own Land. What y'all know about the siren of the French Broad? Deep in the hills of Asheville, North Carolina, there's a stream, the Lorelei of the French Broad River. There's sections of the Lorelei that get deep and the water whirls. These Appalachian hills can get hot in the summertime. These pools of water with their cooler temperatures and depth make it the perfect place to stop to cool off. You could take a dip, bathe, just sit on the bank and relax. Something about these streams in the mountain are so peaceful and calm. But are they really peaceful and calm? Since the times of the Cherokee, been a siren lurking in those waters. Legend states that if you sit down beside that water and you're weary and downtrodden and you wish to rest inside that water, you'll begin to hear a sound. Beautiful sound. Very softly, you'll begin to hear the beautiful sound of music. Blends perfectly with the water splashing over the rocks. You'll look down at the water and slowly but surely, a beautiful woman's face will begin to appear. With long hair and dark eyes, she pulls you closer and closer to wanting to get into that water. Soon you can't control yourself. You've got to get in the water. Just as you edge into the water, arms that are said to be as cold and slimy as serpents catch you. The face you're looking at, honey, is different than the one you saw the first time. The beautiful woman is gone and a grinning skull remains. Try to yell for help, but all that's heard is a loud, chattering laugh from that ugly siren. And then the water goes still again. Gone forever. So tell me, do you believe there's a siren in the French Broad? Be careful the next time you sit on the stream side. If you start to hear music, get up and walk the other way before she lures you in. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had an encounter with the siren of the French Broad. Oh, I forgot, if you did, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that house is starting to freak me out too. So this is the old abandoned house on the farm. And there's holes in every part of the place. Like we hear stuff that sounds like rattlesnakes coming from there at night. Mind you, this land, my family received it from our ancestors who got it through sharecropping. Slaves own this land, and a lot of people that used to venture out here came from the Appalachian trails. And I'll go ahead and tell you what, at night that front porch light will flicker on and off, and it scares the fuck out of all of us, and I swear that chair will move.
We have an Appalachian Mountains story on our hands. So I was listening to one of my favorite spooky story podcasts, and I came across this one, and it was pretty spooky. This guy says that he went to college at Appalachian State, and for fun, he didn't really like to go to bars or to go drinking, but he loved to go to abandoned places and just kind of roam around and explore. So he says that there was some sort of cave that was underneath a bridge, and he had been there before, the year prior. Nothing spooky really happened. So he had told his friends, you know what, this place is kind of cool, we should go. His friends are like, okay, yeah, let's go. They are going under there. He says that it's so tight to get in. They have to like shimmy their way in there. First of all, I have claustrophobia. It ain't happening. So anyways, they get there, and he says that off the bat, he noticed that it was very different this time. There was so many different markings, pentagram markings, and it looked like someone had some sort of seance in there. Again, that wasn't there the year prior. Nonetheless, they continue on their little tour, and they're going deeper and deeper, and right above, they go into this crawl space to get to the next area. Right above that crawl space, it says he's in there, and it's pointing in the direction that they're going. Of course, people always do and say spooky things, so he didn't think much of it. Him and his friends are like, are you still down? And they were down. They are going into that crawl space to go into the next space, and all he has is a flash to his iPhone. There's a few of them, about 3 of them. So they are crawling in there, and as we know, the flash to our phones cannot reach that far. So he saw some sort of shadow, and he didn't know what it was. So he was like, okay, what was that? He asks his friend for his flashlight because he had an actual flashlight. He shines it, and he sees this really weird creature. He says he's never seen anything like this before. He's also never seen a giraffe, but you know what a giraffe would look like. And he had never seen anything similar to this. And as soon as they shine the light to him or to it, it literally started bouncing towards them, like off the walls, in no specific direction, just going. Obviously, they book it. They are out. They're like, you know what, forget this. And they're out of there. They end up talking to each other, and they're like, okay, we all saw the same thing. What do you think that was? No one had any type of explanation. That next morning, the person that's telling the story says that he is taking a shower. He's brushing his teeth in the shower, and out of nowhere, he spits out like this clot of blood. That had never happened before. Later that day, he meets with one of the friends that went with him into that cave, and the first thing that he says was, hey, you know what's weird? I spit out like a clot of blood today. And they were like, okay, we have to talk to the third person that was with us, and literally the same exact thing happened to him. He doesn't like to talk about the story. 1, because he's scared. 2, he has a feeling that not a lot of people will believe him. But it is so crazy, the lore and the secrecy of what happens in the Appalachian Mountains, because we literally have no idea what is truly going on in there and what any of this is. They ended up doing some sort of research, and he ended up coming up with some sort of demon, that it was a demon that was called to protect that area. Nonetheless, he doesn't like to talk about it, but isn't this scary? Like, I don't know, the Appalachian Mountains just freak me out. Listen to the story on the podcast called Radio Rental. So spooky. If you guys have not heard about that podcast, I highly suggest it. And if you guys have any spooky stories, make sure that you send them.
Of Appalachia, they say if you see something strange, don't look twice. But this man, he looked, and then he ran toward it. The figure vanishes in an instant, ducking behind a tree. The camera shakes just for a second, and when it refocuses, nothing is there. But freeze the footage. Look closer. Several viewers point out a second set of eyes in the brush. Others swear there's a horned silhouette just off frame. The comments pour in. Why would you run toward it? That's not curiosity, that's a death wish. Was it smoking a cigar or breathing smoke? This wasn't a person in a costume. The speed, the way it melted into the forest, the way it disappeared without a trace, no footprints, no sound, just a chill in the air. You can call it fake, you can call it fear, but the things in the woods don't care what you believe. They're real, and now they know you've seen them.
Listen, every witch knows to put blow cinnamon through your doorway on the first of the month. But did you know you can put money down and coins, and then you put your mat over it? Now, we're also going to sweep our house, we're going to sweep first with salt. We're going to sweep all that up, and then we're going to add cinnamon to our water, and we're going to mop this floor, and we're going to have money come in just like I do every month. Cha-ching, bitches. Cha-ching. Now, if you have cinnamon incense, you're going to blow that all into your purse and wallet. If you have an acorn, you're going to put it in your wallet. Then you're going to get you some olive oil and cinnamon, and you're going to mix it up, and you're going to anoint your doorknobs. Front door and back door. Because we're witches, baby. That's what we do. Okay, love you, weirdos. Bye.
I told y'all about my pop-up, who was the Grand Master of his Freemason sect for a couple years or however long in the 60s. And I've told you about my grandma, who essentially I just found out is like an Appalachian granny witch or whatever. Now I gotta tell y'all a funny story because, okay, so in the early 90s or late 80s, I want to say my pop-pop's wife passed away. It was right before I was born. I was born in 95. I got chills. I love that. So my grandma owned this bar called the Time Zone in this little racist town in Tennessee, and my pop-pop still lived in Newberry, but he would go back and forth and see her a bunch. So they lived in a dry county. They owned a bar in a dry fucking county, right? So that means no liquor. Like, you could have the beer, but you couldn't have liquor, right? Well, what is a bar without liquor? They were bootlegging it. So my grandma, and they told the story as though my pop-pop didn't know. Bitch, you went counties over to get liquor and drive it back to the bar. You knew you were bootlegging. Like, you can be the little perfect pop-pop all you want, but you bootlegged liquor there for a little bit. The part that's so funny to me is that cops would go to this bar, like cops that were at, or like in that town or whatever, they would come to the bar and order liquor because, according to them, when they were there, they were not cops. They were just people who wanted to drink liquor in their fucking town. And my dad at the time was a fugitive, and his cousin was a cop and used to come in. And my mom asked the cousin one time, she was like, you see him right there. Like, how are you able to, like, do that, blah, blah, blah. And he literally said, when I'm here, that's just my cousin. Like, I'm not a cop trying to arrest him, essentially. So when we moved to Oak Ridge, which is where, like, my mom grew up or whatever, it was like 45 minutes away. We ended up taking my ex-girlfriend over there, who is now a trans man. And I'm only saying this for the story because it, like, kind of matters. She's black. But, like, again, Tennessee is the only place that I experienced full blatant racism, and it was fucking awful. Anyways, we take her up to Ozone Falls, which she has already been to, which is the place where my grandma talked the ghost off the Vietnam veteran, and the Time Zone had burned down. That was the reason why my grandma left. And I'm not gonna say nothing, but her husband was shiesty as fuck, so I think it got burnt down. But I digress. There was still rubble there from it. I got chills again. And my mom literally said, Shaky, go grab one of those rocks, because my grandma would always pull over through the mountains and grab random rocks and stuff. So Shaky goes over. We see her coming back with this big ass fucking rock of this crab orchard stone or whatever. And like, when we tried to pick it up later, it takes two people. We don't even know how she did that. Now, granted, this was a brawling bitch, but hold on, I'm gonna show y'all the rock. So she was taking forever to grab one, and we're getting nervous. That's why I brought up her race, because again, we are not in a great area for her to be just snagging something. So I started getting out of the car to go over just in fucking case, and she starts running back like a cartoon with this, and she straight up told us that my grandma specifically told her to get this stone. This shit is so heavy, two people have to carry it. But that bitch is beautiful.
Y'all know I grew up on haunted land in the Appalachian Mountains. I have an update. Something new happened. My dad borrowed this backhoe off of his buddy so he could help me build a driveway and dig out water lines. And in the meantime, he's building himself a driveway to the top of the mountain where they plan to eventually build a home. Well, the other night, whenever he got done working, he parked the backhoe behind the old cabin that I've posted videos of, just to try to hide it, just so it's not out in plain sight. Several hours go by and him and my mom are sitting on the couch and they start seeing flashing lights coming in through the window. And they live in Appalachia, so it's pitch black dark outside. There's not a street light around. My dad assumed he just left the hazard lights on, so he told Mom he's gonna walk over there and turn them off. He'd be right back. So he comes back and he has the weirdest look on his face. My mom was like, "What's wrong?" He said he made his way across the creek and around the old cabin, and right as he made it to the backhoe and reached up to turn it off, the lights just shut off. And then he realized he had the keys in his pocket the entire time, and you can't turn the lights on without the key. My dad doesn't scare very easily, but even he was weirded out. I wonder if it's my great-great-great-grandparents' spirits messing with him or something else.
Appalachian superstitions. If a rabbit crosses your path before sunrise, your day will be filled with happiness. Hang a horseshoe upside down to keep good luck from running out. And never repay the salt you have borrowed. If you see a spider web in the doorway, you'll have good luck. But if you close a knife that you didn't open, you'll have bad luck. If a bad storm is coming your way, put a two-edged axe into a stump and the storm will go around you. Always hold your breath when you pass a cemetery. A garden spider will often write a message within its web. And if you see the birds flying low, rain's on its way.
Here are some tips that'll help you stay alive here in Appalachia. This one's important. When the one-eyed goat debates your height, make sure to keep your butthole tight. There's actually one that's about No Nut November. When the muscular toad shows his chode for 3 months, you must not bust a load. Dead serious. If the fox jumps the fence on the autumn moon, make sure to shave your by noon. When the holler goes cold and quiet at night, make sure to keep that butthole tight. If the rabid squirrel bites your nipple, you must boof 100 pickles. Dig a hole when you go duke, otherwise your friends will step and poop. Damn! My bad. If you see a muskrat on the grassy knoll, make sure to put an acorn in your pee hole. When the music slaps and you hear that fiddle, make sure to pee your pants, just a little. If you follow this advice, you'll be just fine in our neck of the woods. Love y'all. Remember, keep it corked. Stay wild.
I hope that every single in North Carolina right now gets ran deep into the Appalachian Mountains, because just like the people in North Carolina know how to take care of business, them mountains will take care of business tenfold. I hope they end up out there in the middle of sunset. Okay, when things start getting weird, I hope that them bitches start whistling in the middle of the woods. I hope that they start hearing their dead mamas or relatives calling their name in them sticks out there pitch black, because them mountains have been taking care of business, and them cryptids out there have been handling shit way before these United States of America was even conceptualized. So yeah, go play in the woods. Go play in the woods for a little bit. Let me know how that goes.
A couple months ago, I decided to move from Minneapolis, Minnesota to a tiny Appalachian mountain town, and I've loved it, but there are some major differences, and allow me to enlighten you. First and foremost, the catchphrases. They are real. They are real. I'm talking bless your heart. I'm talking madder than a wet hen, and it is so fun to start saying. Oh, my personal favorite is that instead of calling someone a B word, if you will, they'll call them a heifer. Saturdays are garage sale days, but not really like garage sales. There's just like any business parking lots. You can kind of just take your car and set up a table and then sell a bunch of stuff. I have yet to check them out and like buy stuff from there, but I do see them every single week. Sundays, on the other hand, everything is closed. Everything is closed. Absolutely everything is closed. And sometimes Mondays and Tuesdays they are too. It's like really common here. So like if you want to do some shopping or anything, your best bet is like Wednesday through Friday. Saturdays are fine as well, but obviously they're busier. So, like if you want to go get a coffee at the local coffee shop on Sunday, you're SOL, babe. Which honestly I'm not complaining about because that's probably good for me. I like the idea of Sunday being, you know, the day of rest. And that is also occurring because it is really religious down here, especially in terms of Jesus, God. There's a church on every single corner, truly every corner. If you want to go to a Baptist church, you'll find one within 3 seconds. But they've also got some Methodist, some like Lutheran, you know, just a couple here and there. There's also a Mormon church nearby. And as it is a religious town, there's stuff about Jesus all over the buildings, all over the signs, pretty much everywhere. There's that stereotype of Midwesterners being super nice, like Iowa nice, Minnesota nice, all of that kind of stuff. I find that the people in this small Appalachian town are like, they would go to the ends of the earth to help you. Specifically, if you're a part of their community, they're not going to let anything happen to you. Anytime I just mention something that I need or something that could even just make my life a tiny bit better, there's always a person who's like, I'm gonna find that, and they run and go get it and they give it to me for free. That's where like all the furniture in my house came from. It's just a community that is really, really centered on being of service to each other, and I enjoy that so much. That's one of my favorite things about being here. Next one, odds are that if you want some eggs or some honey or some other produce in that manner, somebody's gonna have like a little shack on the side of the road where they sell that stuff. Not too long ago, I drove past the most adorable honey stand. It's just like a little shed, and it is so freaking cute, you guys. There's a bunch of those like everywhere. And kind of aligning with that, almost everything here is a small business. There's not a lot of big like corporations and stuff. There are some. We have a Starbucks, we have a Walmart. Walmart's like our only store. But other than that, everything on Main Street, well, that's pretty common, but like everything all over the place is a small family-owned business, which I do thoroughly enjoy. I find it just generally rewarding to get to know these store owners and the community members, and we all communicate in a group chat on Facebook. It is hot in here. Hurricane Helene devastated so many of these mountain towns, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to support these small businesses that work there, as opposed to going to these big corporations that'll be totally fine. But like a mom and pop shop, they like might not make it. And that's just been really cool to see everybody coming together to support different businesses. These towns love a festival. When I tell you there's a festival like once or twice a month on Main Street of all of these towns, I'm so serious. But it also just means there's so much to do and so much to explore and so many people to meet. It's truly just a blast to go see the entire community out and about. Here's a fun one. People get sweet tea for breakfast. I mean, sweet tea is obviously a thing up north, but it is nowhere near as much of a thing as it is down here. And every time I've ever gone out to breakfast with anybody, it's like sweet tea, sweet tea, sweet tea. Everybody in the restaurant has sweet tea. And I will say, it is so freaking good. Whatever they put in it, sugar. It's got me hooked, babe. Oh, the thrift scene is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And that's probably just because like somebody's grandma got rid of all their things, you know? Or like when people pass away, they just like throw them into thrift stores. But the amount of cheap vintage things I've seen is absolutely insane. I think that there's so much we can learn as a country about Appalachia if we give them the resources to really develop, but that's a conversation for another day.
I know you're thinking, you know, I can't get up. I can't feel my body. I feel like I'm awake, but I feel my body. The thing is, it's a democratic country, okay? You can get up whenever you want. If you were a Republican, you'd be getting up so quickly, probably quicker than anybody else we've ever seen. Believe me, we're looking into it. But you're not because you're a Democrat. It's just it.
This video actually had nothing to do with Appalachia at all. It just made me laugh, so that's what it is. You guys, I'm also changing the format of this channel, so this is going to be the last video that y'all see like this, more than likely. But I'm not changing the channel. I just got to add a little bit more stuff to it so that way we can go ahead and get monetized. All right. Have a great day. Continue watching.